Hello, my name is Patrick Garman, and I'm the Solution Lead for Industrial and Consumer Electronics at Jama Software. In this demo, I'm going to walk through an example of using Jama Connect Interchange to share requirements with MathWorks tools, and then bring that information back into Jama Connect for complete traceability. Here's what you'll see. First, I'm going to export a set of requirements from Jama Connect to a recif file using Jama Connect Interchange. Next, I'll import that recif file into the requirements editor in MATLAB and link those requirements to model elements in Simulink. Once links are in place, I'll use MATLAB's native recif export feature to create a new recif package that includes both the requirements and their Simulink connections. Finally, I'll import that recif file back into Jama Connect using Jama Connect Interchange, which will update any requirements that were edited in MATLAB, and also create a new set of model items in Jama Connect to represent the Simulink model elements. By the end of this process, you'll see how Jama Connect maintains end-to-end traceability between requirements and model elements, bridging the gap between systems engineering and model-based design. So here I have a Jama Connect project, and you see I have a set of functional requirements here, and these are some requirements that I want to link to elements of a model that I've built in Simulink. And I'm going to start this process by exporting these requirements into a recif file. And recif file is essentially an XML file type, but it is a format that is specifically designed to be a standard file type for requirements management tools to enable this kind of exchange of information. All right, so I'm going to start. I've already connected my Jama Connect instance to my Jama Connect Interchange. And so I'm going to come to our conversations page, and I'm going to start a new conversation. I'm just going to give it, first I need to tell it what tool I'm going to be connecting with. And so we're going to go with Simulink. And next. And then we need to pick, if we have more than one Jama Connect connector, we've got to tell it which one we want to export and import with. And then we just need to pull the project ID. So here we can see this is project 251. So I can search by project using the API ID, or I can use a text search using this drop-down menu. So this project is Simulink Demo. And there we go, just type a few letters, it pops up for me. And then I'm going to give my conversation a name. And this is how I can know if I'm having several projects or even several sections of a project that are exchanging information with Simulink. We want to have separate conversations for those. So I'm going to call this Simulink Demo for now. All right, so now I've created the conversation space in Jama Connect Interchange, and I want to start by exporting. So I'm going to come to my export page, and here I'm going to start by selecting a location, step 1, location. And there are a few different ways that are locations. I can export a baseline, I can export a filter. For this situation, I'm going to stick to the container, and I'm going to, select my functional requirements, even that set of, so I need to select either the project root or a component, and I'll have a chance to filter items out, but here I'm going to select this component, click next. And within that, if there were other sets of items, I could filter those out, but this is the one that I want, so I'm going to save. All right. Now then, on export, there are field mappings. So I can select, for example, if I had more than one item type, more than just functional requirements, I could select which item types I want to include. But I can also set which fields I want to keep for each of these. So there may be several fields that I don't care about bringing into MATLAB Simulink because they're not relevant to the work that I want to do there, or I just don't need them and that other thing. So I can turn off any of these fields that I don't care about or don't need to have in Simulink. So I'm only exporting the specific data that I want to import into Simulink. All right, so in this case, I'm really just keeping the name, description, and rationale fields. So I can save that export mapping. And Jama Connect Interchange will also capture all of your relationship types, just in case we're pulling the relationships back in, but those are all mapped automatically. So from here, I can just initiate export and confirm. And depending on how many items, this is, 6 or 7 items, it's going to be really fast. Depending on how many items you are trying to export into RecIF, that could potentially take longer. But from this log screen, you can see the progress, especially if you use the funnel icon, include debug. It gives you some status, but ultimately it gives you this link where you can download the RecIF file. So here, I'm just going to drag and drop that onto my desktop so I can find it. And now I'm going to switch over to MATLAB. So starting here in requirements editor, because I need to import those requirements that I did previously. And here I'm going to delete out. So for that, I'm going to first clear out these that I had done previously, which I can't do there, but anyway. So I'm just going to import. We are importing from RecIF, and I'm just going to browse to find the file that I saved to my desktop. So here we have that RecIF file I just created from Jama. So we'll open that. These other settings, MATLAB automatically selects some things. I would say, it automatically detects that it's coming from Jama. If you want to save this in a different location, you can do that here. And ultimately, we're going to import these requirements. All right, so here I have my second import. And you can see that these requirements have come through. Now then, I exported the description and rationale field. So why are they not showing up here? Because this is the MATLAB description and rationale field. For those Jama elements, we need to come down here to custom attributes. And here we can see all of those fields as set that we exported. All right. Now that we're in MATLAB, so now we want to start, say this is our model that I want to start connecting things to. So in MATLAB, I'm going to select a model element here at the controller, and we will say that 1.1 is the one, so I can just right click it and link from controller. Then I could even say, here we go, my Dryden wind gust models is part of 1.3. So again, I can create the link there. And let's do one more. Let's do this small gain 1. We'll link that to 1.6. Okay, so now we've added all of our links, and so now what we want to do is we want to take this that we've done, I want to save it, but then I'm going to export this back to RecIF. And so here I can just reuse the original mapping from Jama. If there are, attributes that you want to remove, you can do that here. But the most important thing is we want to export links. So make sure that this export links box is checked. And then we can set a location. I'm going to move this to our desktop again for easier finding. And when we're ready, we can just click export. So it's running through everything. It's going to save that to our desktop. So what we can do now is let's come back to JCI, and I'm going to switch to import, because now we've pulled that data from MATLAB and Simulink, and we want to bring it into Jama. So I'm going to go to my import in the same conversation, click upload. I'm going to select that file that I just pulled out of Simulink. And we've already set the location, which we can edit if we need to, but we're going to leave it at the same location. And here, we're going to map for the import. So we want to have our functional requirements mapped back to functional requirements in Jama. And these others, these are those model elements that we want to bring back in. And so I'm going to bring those in as models. So I can select what item type in Jama I want to have as a reference to those elements back in MATLAB Simulink. So I've turned those on. Now I'm going to save our item type mappings. And I can switch to fields. And here, same thing. I just want to map everything back to what it should be in Jama. So here I'm looking at those model elements. So we want to create this as a set. And we want to bring in the name of the set to the name of the collection from MATLAB to a set name in Jama. But then we also have to establish these object types. So here it's just Simulink objects. If we had, say, like headers or information items, we could maybe map those differently. But we want to tell Jama these Simulink objects, should they be brought in as folders, text, or models? And in this case, that's the actual model elements. So we'll bring them in as models, which is the item type that we map to in the first step. So now Jama is going to generate the mappings. We're just going to pull, here are the elements, the metadata elements that it's finding on these Simulink objects, and we just want to map these back to an item in Jama. So here, description will go to description, name goes to name, and if we want to keep, if there is a key, we can map that to an additional field. But once we're done, we're going to click Save. And now we will move on to our next item type, which is functional requirements. And again, functional requirements will come back in as a set. And we really only have to map those fields that we want to update. So here I can just leave that as name, and here functional requirement will go back to functional requirement. And again, we really don't have to map many of these fields back if we're not actually bringing in field level updates. So here I'm just going to map the name. If I had made changes to the other fields in MATLAB, I would change those here. And my final step, I want to go to relationships, and I just need to map, excuse me, map these back into the appropriate, even though they were originally pulled from Jama, I'm mapping them back to the relationship types that they were pulled from. The good thing about doing this import mapping is you really only have to do it once. Once you've mapped everything in this conversation, you can just keep reusing this conversation and just make updates as necessary. Okay, another thing you'll notice with each of these relationships, we have this option to reverse direction. And that is because some tools treat traceability in a slightly different direction. So what is happening right now in Simulink, the way I created those, is that the model element is actually upstream of the requirement. But in Jama, we want for the requirement to be upstream from the model. So I can fix that by clicking this box to reverse direction on each of these, so that when it brings it in, they will be in the relationships will be in the correct cardinal direction. All right, so once we've done that, we can click Save. And now that we've mapped everything, we can initiate import. And Jama's going to ask us, do we want to update existing items? And that's what we want to choose for this, because we want to update the existing functional requirements, and those model elements will be brought in as new items. Now then, in future iterations, if we export these functional requirements and these model elements into Simulink again, say we've made updates and we want to redo it again, it'll update the existing models that you've already imported. If you select create new items, it will only create new items. It will not update any existing items. So in this situation, we want to update the existing items. So we'll confirm. And it tells us to take a look at the logs page, and it'll take a little bit for this to finish. So again, we'll get a complete message when it's done, but if we want to see more, we can enable this debug option, and you can see that JCI is evaluating, and it's saying like, okay, look, no field changes happened with these, so we're not going to update those. But here we go, we do have a few fields that we had to update, and we're creating those relationships, because again, we linked 3 items. All right, so let's go back into Jama, and if I refresh my tree, now you see that there's this additional component here under my functional requirements. If I expand that, I have this set of models, And in here, I have each of those models. So here is the controller, and you can see it has a link back to that element in the description field. And it is related to the transfer history with a satisfied by marker. And that concludes the demo. You've now seen how Jama Connect Interchange makes it possible to seamlessly exchange requirements with MATLAB and Simulink through the RecIF standard. By moving requirements into MATLAB, linking them to model elements in Simulink, and then bringing those links back into Jama Connect, we've established full traceability between the system requirements and the model-based design. This integration helps your teams reduce errors, streamline collaboration across engineering disciplines, and maintain compliance with industry standards. Thank you for watching, and please reach out if you'd like to explore how Jama Connect can support your development process.